All right, for our last section before the end of the 6 weeks for rational expressions, we're going to be talking about adding and subtracting. So you probably noticed some of the questions from the multiplying and dividing homework that had to do with adding and subtracting. We're going to talk about that today. So key notes are here. First thing that we really need for adding and subtracting rational expressions. Remember, rational is the same thing if I said fancy for fractions, right? So go back to fractions. So go back to adding and subtracting fractions way back in elementary school. You need common denominators, right? So that's our key strategy here, is that we need to make sure that our common denominators are in the fractions. That way we can add or subtract. Multiplying and dividing, it doesn't matter. You just multiply straight across. Dividing, you flip and then multiply. But for adding and subtracting, least common denominator is necessary. So that's what that LCD is, and we'll talk about that in a second. But well, let's practice first with like denominators. So our first few examples are just with like denominators. So remember, when you're adding fractions, your denominators are going to stay the same, right? And we're just going to be adding our numerators. So what this looks like is x plus 5 minus x divided by 4. And then we'll combine our like terms here. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? And it's 5 divided by 4. That's our simplified form there. So same thing here. So I want us to think about this, because this is 7 minus 3x. So, and our denominator is 2x minus 3. So think about when you're, and we'll see this come into play in just a second, when we're subtracting, remember we're subtracting the entire term here. So if it is a binomial, your signs are going to switch. In this case, it's just a monomial. So it's just 7 minus 3x divided by 2x minus 3. And that's our simplified form there. Let's look at number 3. I think this is supposed to be a y here. I wonder why it didn't print. We have like terms. They're the same. So I'm going to say x minus 3y divided by x squared minus 2xy minus 3y squared. So let's see if we can simplify this after I subtracted. Let's see if I can simplify or factor in the bottom. So we have an x minus 3y in the numerator. In the denominator, let's see, I have an x and an x. I need to add to get a negative 2. So it's going to be a negative 3y, right? And a positive y. That's nice. Those cancel there. So what do I have on the top? If I cancel everything out in the numerator, it's just a 1, right? It's not 0. It's just a 1, and x plus y in the denominator. All right, awesome. All right, let's look at our last one here. This is where we come into the distribution of the negative there, or the minus sign. So in the numerator, we have x squared minus 26 minus 2x plus 4 plus 10 plus x. So think about this. When I'm subtracting a binomial like this, it's really subtracting each term, right? So we should have x squared minus 26 minus 2x minus 4 plus 10 plus x, right? So think about that. Just be aware when you're subtracting what comes after your subtraction sign. You may have to do a little bit of maneuvering or manipulating there. Okay, so let's combine our like terms here. X squared, I have a negative 2x and a positive 2x, so that's a negative x. And then I have a negative 26 minus 4 is negative 30, plus 10 is negative 20. I wonder if we can factor. So just like up here, let's see if we can factor our numerator. Looks like I can, probably a 5 and a 4, right? So if I do x minus 5, x plus 4, that's just fantastic for the denominator. So I can cancel here, and I can write it as x plus 4. I don't need to write over 1 because we know that that's just a whole number there. So that's your simplified form. Not too shabby. All right, let's move on to the other side. We're going to think about these. Now we're talking about adding or subtracting with unlike denominators. So when we're adding or subtracting with unlike denominators, remember we need least common multiple or we need common denominators, right? Same thing, just a couple different terms. When we talk about least common multiples, we're not talking about fractions. When we talk about common denominators, it's least common multiple in a fraction. Denominator. So keep that in mind, always, always. So what is our least common multiple between 6 and 2? So I'm going to look at my numbers first, 6 and 2. Well, my least common multiple for 6 and 2 is 6. And my least common multiple for x and x squared is x, right? Oops, sorry, x squared. So my least common multiple is 6x squared. Let's look at this one. I can probably factor here. So if I simplified this, this is x minus 1, or x times x minus 1, and this is 2 and x minus 1. So they have these in common, right? X minus 1, so that's definitely a part of it. And then I have a 2 and an x. Well, it's 2x. So let me show you a little short way to do this if you're just having difficulty thinking about it. Let's look back up here at 6x and 2x squared, and you may be totally fine with this and you can skip over this part. I have 2 times x here. For 6, I have 3 times 2 times x. For least common multiple, I'm going to take everything down. This is, maybe your teacher showed you this in elementary school, I'm not really sure. So my common denominator here is 6x squared, right? So that's a good way to think about it if you're just not sure. So for this one, here's my common factors, right? I have x and x minus 1, and I have a 2 and x minus 1. So I take one of the matching x minus 1, and I take one of each of the other things too. So my least common denominator here is 2x times x minus 1. All right, let's look at number 7. Factor it first. Remember our factor. So it's going to be 3x and then x plus 2 if I factor. And here I get an x plus 2 and an x plus 2. So let's do the same thing. I'm running out of room. Get my little whiteboard here. I'm just going to continue our work here. If I say that this is 3x times x plus 2, and then the next one is x plus 2 and x plus 2, remember I'm going to take everything down, right? So my least common multiple is 3x, x plus 2, and x plus 2, all right? All right, let's see what that looks like when we're adding here. So when we're finding common denominators, you can do it one of two ways. You can multiply the fraction by what it's missing, or you can multiply the fraction by the entire common denominator and just see what comes out of it and cancel. So let's try this together. Let's look at number 7. We're adding and subtracting with unlike denominators. So number 7 says 6 divided by x minus 1 minus 5x. So I want to think about looking at my terms here. What is my common denominator? Well, it's going to be 4 and x times x minus 1, right? They don't have anything in common, so that's just the whole thing. So I'm going to multiply this side by x minus 1, and I'm going to multiply this side by 4, right? Another way to do it is to multiply it by the entire common denominator, which in this case is 4x minus 1. And what happens is those can cross cancel there, right? So you're left with the same thing. Either way is fine. So we have 24 minus 5x times x minus 1 divided by your common denominator, which is 4 times x minus 1, right? So here, thinking about our sign, right? Don't forget that. You're going to distribute. So we have a 24 minus 5x squared plus 5x. So let's write this all together in descending order. 5x squared plus 5x plus 24 divided by 4x minus 1. And I'm gonna think, can I factor this? All right, so looking at my factors, yeah, just spent a little bit of time. Didn't want to waste the recording looking at our factors here. We have 84 and 10, 70 and 12, 30 and 28, 20 and 42, 24 and 35, and 60 and 14. It doesn't look like it's going to be factorable, so we are just going to leave it like this, and I am happy with that answer there. So that was number 7. So thinking about our like terms here, or our common denominator here was 4x minus 1. All right, let's go to number 8. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, like running through it. Does this factor or does this not? Remember, you can always do A times C when you're factoring. Number 8 says, we have a whole number here, so a little bit tricky. Let's see what we're going to do with that. We have 6 minus x plus 5. So notice that I'm going to put 6 over 1 here, divided by 1 here. We have 7x minus 5 and x minus 4. All right, so what do I know? I know that 1 and these two binomials here are going to be my common denominator, right? So I need to multiply this numerator by this whole thing, right? So it's going to look like this. 6 times 7x minus 5 times x minus 4 minus x plus 5. So don't forget we're subtracting the whole binomial. And in our denominator, we get 7x minus 5 and x minus 4. Also the times 1, but we don't have to write that. Okay, because we're subtracting, remember, we cannot cancel these out, right? Because we're subtracting here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to FOIL this and see what we get. So if I multiply all of these out, we get 6 and 7x squared minus 28x minus 5x plus 20 minus, I'm going to go ahead and distribute this negative here, x minus 5. All right, still our denominator's the same, didn't do anything with it. I'm going to keep it simplified or factored like this. All right, now let's go ahead and distribute. So I have a 6 times 7 is a 42x squared, 6 and 28. Pull out my calculator, 6 times 28 is 168x. 6 and negative 5, we'll combine those in just a second. And 6 and 20 is 120. Okay, minus x minus 5. Now let's go ahead and combine our like terms and see what we get. We have 42x squared, 168 and 30. Do we have another x? Yeah, minus 1 is 197. Oh, no, 199. Oh, that's gross, isn't it? Yuck. And then 120 and negative 5, that is a positive 115, right? 168, yeah, that's right. I just want to check my math there. 7x minus 5 and x minus 4. So my first question is, can I factor anything out of here to make it a little bit smaller? I don't know. Let's see. I know 7 goes into 42, so let's see if 7 goes into 199. Oops. 199 divided by 7 is, nope. 115 divided by 6. How about that? Well, nope. 199 divided by 3. Nope. 199 divided by not 2. Ugh. What else goes into 42? Not 13. Okay, so I think we're left with that. It's pretty ugly, but that seems to be what it is. All right, well, and I'm gonna see, okay, if I do 42 times 115, oops, 42 times 115, blah, 4830. So what I can do is see if we can split the middle term. I'm gonna pause this and check my factors. Okay, so our answer is no. We're gonna leave it like that. That is really ugly, but that's okay. That is what happens when we subtract, right? All right, let's move on to number 9. We'll do a couple more together, and then we'll do some in class. So this is number 9. Hopefully, we'll get to maybe factor some down a little bit. X plus 7, 4 divided by x minus 8. So I want to think about this with my common denominator. Since these are not, these don't really have anything in common, the whole thing itself is going to be the common denominator. So x plus 7 over here, x plus 8 over here, or minus 8 over here, excuse me. So we have a 3 times x minus 8 plus 4 times x plus 7, all divided by x minus 8, x plus 7, okay? So remember, because we have this addition sign in here, we cannot cancel or simplify any of these. We have to go ahead and distribute out. Maybe we'll get some good answers here, like we can factor and simplify, right? Okay, so we have 3x. Once we distribute 3x minus 24 plus 4x plus 7, let's combine our like terms. That's a 7x, negative 24 plus 7, 17. Yep, I'm not thinking that we're going to get any fun here. So it's just going to look just like this, right? And that's our answer. Can't factor anything out. All right, let's move on to 10. We'll do one more together. Let's see what this one looks like, right? So we have 3 divided by 4v squared plus 4v. Sometimes you have to struggle with it for a little bit and you come up with nothing, and that's okay. At least you learned. At least we worked it out. So let's factor this, my denominator here, down. So I can pull out a 4v, right? And I get a v plus 2. So let's line these up because this is 2 times 2 times v plus 2, and here we have a 2. So if I bring all of these down, right, then I have a 2 times v. And you probably already knew this just by looking at it, but just to kind of show you what it looks like to find your common denominator or least common multiple. So this is 4v times v plus 2, right? That's my whole common denominator. So if we multiply it by, well, this one just needs a 2v and v plus 2. And this one just needs a, well, this one doesn't need anything. It already has it, doesn't it? So we'll go ahead and multiply. So when we do that, it's 3 minus, don't forget that minus, 7 times 2v times v plus 2. If we want to multiply it out like that, we can just leave it like what our common denominator is here, 4v squared plus 4v. That might make it easier to multiply. And then in the denominator, I'm going to go ahead and leave that factor just in case if we can do something fun later. Multiplying our negative 7 out here. So we have 3 minus 24, 28, sorry, bad math. And then minus 28v. All over 4v times v plus 2. Okay, let's combine our like terms. I have a negative 28v squared minus 28v plus 3. Gross. We can't do anything. Yeah, 3 doesn't go into any of these numbers, so I guess we're just going to have to leave it like that, and that's okay. All right, so there's 4 more left for you to try on your own. We'll go over those in class when we meet together. Hopefully we'll get some that can end up factoring out. We'll see, and I'll see you in class.